house, and we're doing a family history unit, interviewing ourselves, our grandparents, and our other relatives. Today is 5th of August, September, and of 2005, and we're here at the big house and we're interviewing Grandpa Clair by me, Dylan Maltby. And let us begin.
Okay, you are recording.
Okay, first question. What is your full name?
Clair Eugene Flieder.
Okay. How old are you now?
Well, let's see. This is 2005. I'm 75. Yeah.
75, wow.
Right.
Okay, where do you live?
Tough questions, Dylan.
Mm-hmm.
Merritt Island, Florida. Island Beach Boulevard.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
That's,
US of A.
yeah, okay, that's good. Who do you currently live with, and what is their relationship to you?
Okay, it's my wife, Jody Louise Flieder, of 49 years. Yeah, my wife, okay. All the kids are gone.
Uh-huh. Okay, what name is on your birth certificate? Not very hard.
Clair Eugene Flieder, same name.
Okay, good. Why was your name chosen? Were you named after someone?
No, but I think my aunt Florence, who is a sister of my mother, Alice, named me Clair. I guess she just liked it. It was she was a sister of Grandma Alice, my mother, your grandma. I think she just liked it. No reason. It wasn't named after anyone.
Okay.
Pull it out of the air.
Right. Okay. Did you have a nickname as you were growing up? What was it, and why did they call you that?
Okay. Yeah, nickname was Butch.
Butch.
And that was because I always cut my hair down to the skin.
Oh.
Butch haircut.
Right.
Grandpa Emil gave me haircuts, or my dad Emil gave me haircuts, and he always made him Butch, made him short, just like Farrell and Fletcher's hair used to be,
Right.
and Jody's. That's where my nickname was, Butch.
Okay. Have you had other nicknames as an adult?
No, I don't think so. Oh, Big Daddy.
Yeah.
Okay, Big Daddy's about the only one I can think of.
Okay.
Uh-huh.
All right. What do your family members call you now?
Big Daddy.
Big Daddy.
Yeah.
Okay. When and where were you born?
Okay. Waterloo, Iowa, in October of 1929, during the Depression, the first Depression.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, 1929.
Okay.
Stock market depression.
Right. Yeah. Okay. Where did you live as a child?
Well, I lived in Waterloo, Iowa, which is a town of about 75,000 people. It was not farming, but it was close to farming. Most of the people around the town farmed, but we were semi-commercial, kind of like maybe Merritt Island. Farms and citrus groves lives around us, but they're stores, generally manufacturing.
All right. Let's see. Would you describe your family as poor, middle class, upper class, or very wealthy?
I would say middle class, I think.
Middle class.
Yeah.
Okay. Who is your father?
His name was Emil, E-M-I-L, and he was German from Czechoslovakia, which is Czechoslovakia and near Germany. He was born in this country. Is that going to be one of your questions?
Yeah.
Okay. He was born in Waterloo, Iowa, in 1898.
Oh. Okay. Yeah.
1898 he was born.
Yeah. The next question is when and where was your father born?
Right. Waterloo, Iowa, 1898.
Okay. What was your father's occupation?
Well, he was a city fireman. That is, he worked in the fire department, and he got himself promoted up to captain, which he was in charge of a station. Probably 20 men worked under him, and he worked for 20 years and retired from the fire department. Got a little pension from it. And yeah, he, about 20 years he worked for the fire department.
How would you best describe your father?
Oh, he was very, let's see, very generous and very, always had a smile. He was loving, very loving man, hard working. He'd work at the fire department, and then if he'd ever had a day off, he'd be a house painter or whatever. He didn't mind working to make a living and pay the bills. We paid our bills, but he liked to work, I guess. But he was just a loving man and generous, like I said. He was a good-looking guy, too.
Okay. When, where, and how did he die, and where is he buried?
Okay. Well, he died pretty young. He was only, he was only like 60 when he died. He died in the operating room. They were operating room. He went in and had, in Waterloo, Iowa, he had, I'm sorry, St. Louis, Missouri. That's where he was living. And he had, what was prostate or something, needed cleaning out, let's say. You know, it's a pretty minor, today it's a pretty minor operation. In those days, I guess it's more serious. But anyway, he was on an operating table and he just died of a heart attack. And we didn't know he had a bad heart or anything. And I don't think he did. I think it was just the stress of being on an operating table. Stressed him out. Just a big shock because he was a strong man. He was hardly ever sick. He was hardly ever sick. Maybe a cold, but that was about it.
Okay. Where is he buried?
Okay, he's buried in Waterloo, Iowa, next to my mother, Grandma Alice, Mother Alice.
In the angle.
Okay, ready to go ahead and record.
Okay. Next question.
You got the button on?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Who is your mother?
Okay, mother was Alice. She was born in Chatsworth, Illinois, 1903, and she met my daddy in Waterloo, Iowa. And an interesting thing was her parents had 6 daughters and 2 sons, and my father's side, Emil, had 6 sons and 2 daughters. And 2 of the brothers and 2 of the sisters married each family. That is, Emil married Alice, and Tony married Mabel. So Mabel was a sister of Alice, and then Tony was a brother of my father. So they were married in Waterloo. I don't know what year, probably 1920 or something, 1919, something like that. Well, after the First World War. So let's see, the First World War was 1919, 1920?
It ended in like 1918.
18. So they were probably married in 1920. My brother was born in 1925, so that made sense. They were probably married 5 years before he was born. Grandpa Don, or Brother Don. But she was a loving person too. She watched the money of the house, because as I said, my dad was very easy with the money. Well, not over easy, but he would maybe spoil us, and then she would say, "Oh no, don't give that $1 for a movie. He didn't mow the lawn or something." So she was probably a disciplinarian, like most mothers are. They're home all day long, and Dad was out working. But she was a loving person and giving. Would do anything for you. Yeah, she was a fine mother, really was. I had a fine mother and father.
What was her maiden name?
Maiden name was Patton. That's Scotch and Irish. Patton is Irish.
Yeah.
Her parents came from Scotland and Ireland, Scotland, I guess. Yeah.
Okay, you pretty much answered where was your mother born?
Right.
What was your mother's occupation?
Well, just a housewife, but during the Second World War, like in 1941-42, a lot of women went to war, worked in factories to make shells and tanks and guns. And she did that during the Second World War. She worked probably 3 years in a factory, and they made shells for artillery pieces, because all the men went off to war. And so she worked hard during the war, and they saved their money and paid off their house early, because the grandpa worked and she worked and had a little extra money and she was working. Now I always look forward to, on a Saturday, she worked a half a day on Saturday, and then I was at home. I was probably 11, 12, 13 at the time. And during the Second World War, when I was at home, I was supposed to do the laundry, because Mother worked 5 days a week, 5.5 days in the factory. So I would do the laundry, wash the machine, I'd hang out the clothes, I'd do the dusting and do the housework, and she'd give me maybe 50 cents. So every Saturday after work, she'd get off at noon, I would meet her downtown at a restaurant, and we'd have lunch together. And that was the highlight of my life, it really was. As a young kid, spend time with her, and as I look back, it was just really a highlight, spending time with her. We had a lot of fun. She'd give me some money, maybe I'd go to a movie.
Yeah.
My brother was in the war. Uncle Don was a pilot, a Navy pilot, and he flew Catalina big planes, 3-engine, 4-engine planes. They were kind of scout planes.
Oh yeah, Catalina, PBY-5s.
PBYs,
Yeah, they're
that's
sort
it.
of like, they go out and they attack submarines.
That's what he did. He looked for submarines. He was stationed up in off of Seattle, western part of Canada, Aleutian Islands, and they were looking for Japanese submarines. And they would. That's what he did. He didn't fight. He wasn't a fighter pilot, because he was kind of a laid-back guy, easygoing guy. And during the war, they would make, the government would make a man that was kind of hyper. They'd make him a fighter pilot, because he had to be looking around all the time. And a long bomber pilot would sit, for 8 hours sometimes flying, kind of relaxed, looking around easy. And my brother was real smart. He was a dentist, and he was real smart, but he was laid back sort of, so they made him a bomber pilot. And he flew these PBYs off the water. Yeah, they took off from the water.
How old was he when he became a pilot?
Well, he was probably 23, 24, 25, something like that. When the war broke out in 41, I think he was 18, I guess. He joined the very next day, like a lot of Americans did. They joined the war right away, enlisted. So he was a fighter pilot a bomber pilot for 4 years, I guess, during the war or something like that.
Yeah. How would you best describe your mother?
Well, as I said before, she was loving and kind and considerate. School academics was very important to her. Well, like my father too. When we were, my brother Don, we were probably 8 years old and knew what high school was, knew what college was. They started telling us, even at that early age, now you're going to go to college and get a degree. You're going to finish high school, but you're going on to college. So that was just a way of life. When we got out of high school, we just automatically went to college, like we had a responsibility to do it, but it's expected of us. Like today, it's quite not expected that much of some children. Of course, some children shouldn't go to college, I know that. It doesn't do them any good. They don't learn anything. But my day, of course, in my high school, back after the Second World War, probably only 20% went to college because they couldn't afford it. Most of the Midwest people were middle class, and they claimed they didn't have money. But I went through the GI Bill. I was lucky. My brother went through the GI Bill. We went into service. Then when you come out, they say, okay, they gave me $90 a month to go to college, which paid for my food. They paid my tuition. And that's how I got through college. And the last year or two, I worked my way through college. Made enough money to we paid tuition and books. But getting the GI Bill was a godsend, it really was.
Wow. Let's see. When, where, and how did your mother die?
Well, she died not too long ago on Merritt Island here, and she, I guess just old age. She was really not that old as I look at it, like she was probably 92, 93, 94, and I think she just, the parts just wore out. Didn't die of a heart attack or anything. You know, the kidneys start going bad maybe a little bit, the liver goes bad a little bit, you're not hungry anymore. And,
Natural causes.
just natural causes, I would say. But it was a painless death, really. She just went to sleep in her sleep, and that was it.
Well, where is she buried now?
Well, let's see. She's in Waterloo, Iowa, too, with my father in a cemetery. My father is in the cemetery, and the mother is right next to her. Then my brother Don is buried right next to them. The three of them are all buried together in this cemetery.
Okay, you're recording now, and come on, JoJo. Come on.
All right.
Okay, where do we leave off?
Well, we have some more questions. What was your military experience?
Oh, okay. Let's see. Well, I got to back up a little bit. I graduated from high school. I was 17. I was lucky. Early years, I passed a couple grades. So I was pretty young. So I got out at 17. I went to college for a year, a local college up in Iowa. It didn't do good. I got C's, but it was a teacher's college, and I didn't want to be a teacher. So I quit, joined the Army, went in the Army for a year, and I was stationed in Oklahoma. It was peacetime, like 1948. So just did typical marching infantry. So I got out after a year, came home, and I went back to college and did another year, and then the Korean War broke out in August of '50. And so I was in the reserves, and I already had a year's experience. They called me in to go to Korea. So
We're back with the second episode of Family